What if I told you the Sun Devils still had their best wide receiver even after Elijhah Badger transferring thanks to Jordyn Tyson?
You are Locked On Sun Devils, your daily podcast on the Arizona State Sun Devils. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Sun Devils podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name is Richie Bradshaw, and I will be your guide for everything Arizona State Sun Devils. A special shout out to my everydayers who are here every day, and thanks for making us your first listen of the day. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications wherever you're getting your podcast, and stay in touch with the show by following me on Twitter at RichieBrads36 and the podcast at LO_Sun Devils. Today's episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. These days, every potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. That's why LinkedIn Jobs helps find the right people for your team faster and for free. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Terms and conditions apply. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back in. Before we get this episode started, happy Mother's Day to all the wonderful mothers out there, whether you're Sun Devil fan, Sun Devil alum, or, just a fan of anything. It doesn't matter. We don't discriminate here. Happy Mother's Day to all the wonderful mothers out there. Let's go ahead and get into this episode. This is going to be a little different. So we're continuing our series of previewing each positional group for the Sun Devils and going through the upside, the downside, the potential depth chart, all that kind of stuff. I will tell you when we get to the depth chart part, I'm doing it a little differently. And we'll explore that when the time comes. But we start with the wide receiver room and the way it looks. And it's impossible to not start the conversation with a guy who's no longer in the room. And that, of course, is Elijhah Badger. Badger was the number one receiver for ASU the last two seasons. He has over 1,500 yards, double-digit touchdowns. He was a stud. He was a beast. He did everything for you. He was a deep threat, intermediate guy behind the line of scrimmage. He took carries. He had kickoff returns. This was just a guy that you put the ball in his hands, and he was going to do something with it for you. He is no longer with the program. He is in the transfer portal. He is not expected to return. ASU is moving on, and they need to. You can't hold out the hope for him to come back. Plus, from my understanding, the final scholarship is being filled anyways by not Elijhah Badger. When we get the news, we'll talk about it, but as of now, Badger's not coming back. Doors closed. However, I still think you might have your most talented receiver on the roster. Even with you having to deal with the loss of Badger, which is enormous. He's one of the best receivers of the last 5 years for Arizona State, maybe the last 10. Replacing him is not going to be easy. I don't know that you have one guy that stands out as your number one receiver immediately. I think what you're going to end up seeing is a group combined effort to accumulate the stats that he put together and the presence. Like Badger did everything at every level. You've got guys who can attack every level in different ways. But like I alluded to, I think you still have your most talented receiver, and that's Jordyn Tyson. And Jordyn Tyson, if you are brand new to the show or this is your first year paying attention to Arizona State Sun Devils football, Jordyn Tyson missed last season while recovering from a knee injury. The season before that, he was at Colorado. He had a lot of explosive upside to him. Against Arizona State, oddly enough, he had a over 80-yard touchdown reception and an over 80-yard punt return touchdown. Comes to the good guys. We have to kind of get him back into form. He doesn't play last year. He is good to go for spring ball, and he looks like a superstar. You cannot teach, you cannot coach the talent that he has. He's got the size. He's 6'1" or 6'2", I want to say, depending on what the college height actually is. He is blindingly fast, at least a 4.4, probably a little quicker. He's got good hands. He's able to just contort his body to be able to go up and get those balls, those 50-50 opportunities. And yes, that is a spring overreaction for sure. We saw a little bit of it at Colorado. We saw it at spring. It's all projection. But the projection that Jordyn Tyson has, it feels like it could be better than Elijhah Badger. Now, keep in mind, Badger is going to be playing on Sundays for sure. Wherever he goes, he is going to be on an NFL roster next year. I don't know if it's a first-round pick or if he's a priority free agent, but he is going to the next level. So that's a high bar to try and live up to. It's not going to be easy for any of these guys. But to me, if there is one guy that could do it, it's Jordyn Tyson. Just the way he plays the game, the way that he moves, it's just so sudden. And the fact that he could do one little twitch and he's wide open, it's special. But to really emphasize the point, he is projection. He just has a very high ceiling. But he may not live up to the expectations that people are planting on him. And I was very high on him last year, and he ended up not playing. I am once again very high on him. I'm going to do my best to temper my expectations again, but it's very difficult to with a guy as talented as him. But thankfully, he's not the only one doing it. You've got some other veterans as well. You've got Melquan Stovall, who's coming back. Stovall was a very underrated player for ASU last year, 18 catches, 207 yards. I felt that he deserved a bigger role as the season progressed. He was a really good slot receiver for the team. He's back this year. I plug him in to the slot. To the slot. Goodness. I plug him into the slot. Feels like a very easy plug and play for me. You've got Troy Omeire, who's back. I'm a very big fan of Troy Omeire. I like big receivers. Omeire is 6'4". 50-50 balls, throw it up, put it in a zip code, he's coming down with it. Jake Smith, route running savant, a really, really, really good receiver. Someone who could do a little bit of everything for you. You've got those guys that should be rotating as your top 4 receivers. I don't know that you necessarily have a true depth chart of receiver X, Y, Z kind of thing. I think you just have a really nice rotation. But with those 4 guys by himself, you feel like you are going to be able to make up for what you're losing with Badger. So sure, maybe none of these guys are a 1,000-yard receiver. Maybe none of these guys are a 700-yard receiver. But if you are having them make up for what Badger did at every level of the field, because you have Jordyn Tyson, who can take the top off the defense. You have Melquan Stovall, who can play shallow and near the line of scrimmage. You have Jake Smith, who can get open across the middle. You have Troy Omeire, who can post up. You have all those guys culminate together, you can get it done. At worst, you can get it done. And there's plenty of other guys as well. You got young guys like Kaleb Black and Korbin Hendrix. I know that you've got, who was I going to say? Xavier Guillory is also on the team as well. You can't overlook him. Coben Bourguet has been here for a minute, brother of Trenton. He seems to be able to just stack together good practices. Will he finally get onto the field? It's a room that has a lot of upside, but it is truly projection. This could be either a very good receiver room, or it could be one of the weaknesses on this roster. And I think this is a good roster. So for it to be the weak point of the roster would not be ideal. We'll see. I'm a very big Jordyn Tyson fan. I've never shied away from that. I don't plan to shy away from that. I like Omeire. I'm very high on Melquan Stovall, as you'll find out here in just a little bit. I've been high on Stovall throughout the offseason. I am just going to continue to be higher and higher on him. Jake Smith missed last year because of the NCAA's two-time transfer policy. He's back. He looks good. Those four by himself give me confidence. You got the other depth as well. But to really just emphasize this point, and I'm sure I'll say it more during the podcast to hammer it home, this room, this wide receiver depth chart, this core of guys is projection. It can be great, or it can be a work in progress, or it could be bad. There's a lot of different ways that this could play out for the Sun Devils. Hopefully it plays out in the right way. But where we're going to go next is a sort of depth chart for the Sun Devils. I'll explain what I mean in just a moment. This is the Locked On Sun Devils podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find qualified professionals that are right for the role. That's why you got to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just another job board. LinkedIn helps hire the right professionals that you can't find anywhere else, even those who aren't actively searching for a new job but might be open to the perfect role in a given month. Over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place. On LinkedIn, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours of posting. Hire professionals like a professional on LinkedIn. LinkedIn also knows that small businesses are wearing a lot of hats and may not have the time or resources to hire, which is why LinkedIn is constantly finding ways to make the process easier and even launched a feature that helps write job descriptions, making the process easier and quicker than before. 2.5 million small businesses use LinkedIn for hiring. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Wherever you're getting your podcast, hit like, subscribe, turn on notifications so you get an update whenever we post new content. If you're looking for something to put on your TV that's not Fox Sports or ESPN, but keeps you up to date with all the big news, then you got to check out Locked On Sports Today. It's a free 24/7 streaming channel programmed for you every day with the biggest stories and no screaming. You don't have those ESPN personalities that are screaming at you. You know who I'm talking about. They all do it. It's free on YouTube. It's free on the Amazon Fire TV channels app. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Let's get into this. I'm going to put it in quotes, depth chart for ASU. I kind of broke it up into three parts for myself here in my notes. Now, like I said, this is going to be a heavily rotated group, and I don't know that you have a true X, a true Y, a true Z on this team. I don't know that any of these receivers are specifically, hey, this is going to be the number one guy. This is going to be the starting slot. What I tried to do is I took a look at who I think the top three guys are going to be, the guys I like to play the slot, and then some depth and wild cards. My top three, I went back and forth on this for a minute. Jordyn Tyson, obviously, up there for me. I was just glowing about him. It's not a secret that I really like Jordyn Tyson. He's a stud. He's a beast. He's somebody that, if everything clicks, he's going to be one of the best kept secrets in the Big 12. He's going to be one of the most exciting weapons on offense for ASU. I think I talked yesterday about Raleek Brown and how Brown is pound for pound probably the most explosive player on the offense. Jordyn Tyson would probably be number two for me if he hits. He is a lot more projection than Raleek was, though. But Tyson is one of my top three receivers. This is so tough for between Omeire, Smith, and Stovall. You can put them in any order, and you could even put all of them ahead of Tyson. For me, I'm going Jordyn Tyson, Troy Omeire, and Melquan Stovall. And I know that's going to catch some people off guard because Jake Smith is a beast. He's a monster. He is someone who is a former highly recruited kid, somebody who is like the definition of activate the valley and everything. He could very easily be one of the top 3 guys. And again, I feel like you could do 1A, 1B, 1C, 1D for all these guys. The reason why I go Omeire and Stovall ahead of him, one, both of them got to play last year. Smith did not get to play. So he's another year removed from actual on-field play. He can look great in practice all day. If he's not ready to go on the field, actual game time is a lot different than simulated practices. So Jake Smith may not be 100% at the start of the year or at the midpoint point of the year. It may take him some time to get adjusted. Meanwhile, Omeire and Stovall are adjusted. With Stovall, I think he fits a lot of different roles for you. Like I said, I like the idea of playing him shallow and near the line of scrimmage and maybe dump offs across the middle. I like Stovall to be that check down option where Tyson and Omeire aren't open deep. Oh, there's Stovall for 7 yards. Perfect. Check down. And I think that kind of value with Stovall is something that's going to get him in the lineup a lot more than people think. With Omeire, he's just got size. And he looked good last year. Towards the end of the year, I felt like he was wide receiver 2 on the team, only behind Badger. He has every opportunity to come out and do the exact same thing. He looked good in spring ball. He's just going to keep growing into his body, and as he continues to be a beast at the catch point, and you can just toss that thing up to a 6'4" receiver, man. I like Omeire a lot. Stovall, I'm very, very high on him. Jake Smith, right there. Again, you could put all their names into a hat, pull 3 names, whoever it was, I'd be happy. In the slot, it's Stovall and Jake Smith for me, but I also really like the idea of Kaleb Black. Kaleb Black is somebody that I have brought up before and somebody who really stood out to me during spring ball. He's a redshirt freshman. He got on the field a few times last year. I think he had 4 total touches. Nothing too crazy. But in practices, he's quick. And he's clearly learning to become a better route runner. If everything continues to progress, he is a really good fit in the slot. I believe he's 5'10". He's got that twitchiness. The one thing is you want to see him continue to work on catching. It felt like there was a few drops during spring ball, but you'll kind of get him into the mix and rotate. I think by the end of the year, he should be able to carve himself a little niche. But Stovall and Smith, those are my slot guys. I already explained Stovall. Smith, what I like so much about Jake Smith is he's just a good route runner. So getting him into a position where he's going to be relying on getting open underneath to be that check down option and to be the guy who can help move the chains, I can't really draw up a better option than a really good route runner like Jake Smith. Now, some of the key depth guys, Xavier Guillory, one of the biggest names on the team. He was a big transfer get last year. He started off the year really hot. He got injured down the stretch. He disappeared. He's going to have a really tough time fighting in this receiver room. It's not even his fault. It's just a deep room. But he has shown the potential to be a field stretcher and a deep threat for the team. There's still an opportunity for him to do that. Coben Bourguet, is it finally time for him to break out, or is he just such a good teammate to be able to get the most out of his guys and be a good leader and everything? Interested there. One more name that really catches my eye is Corbin Hendrix. Hendrix is another redshirt freshman. He's a bigger dude, somewhere between 6'2" and 6'4". Again, you can look at the websites. I put a little bit of stock into it. It's just very difficult. But the point is he's big. And I would love to see him continue to work as a post-up receiver. I want to see him learning under Troy Omeire. I don't know what his role looks like for this year, but I do think that we're going to hear Corbin Hendrix's name on more than a few occasions. I think you're just going to see some kind of big play and Hendrix comes down with it, and you're going to be like, who is this guy? And it's like, oh, it's redshirt freshman Corbin Hendrix. He got developed. I'm excited for him. I'm excited for this room in general. There's a lot of potential here. And you're really going to need the potential because you have a young quarterback in Sam Leavitt who is very green and needs all the help that he can get to progress going forward. And this is where we'll go ahead and talk about the upside and the downside of this wide receiver room. We're going to transition right now. This is the Locked On Sun Devils podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. It's winner take all in the NBA and NHL, and FanDuel's giving you a shot to bring home a big win of your own. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 to bet on spreads, money lines, player props, and more. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make every playoff shot count. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. And wherever you're getting your podcast, hit like, subscribe, turn on notifications so you get an update whenever we post new content. I appreciate you guys for tuning in as always and making us your first listen of the day. And a shout out to my everydayers who are here every day. We're going to wrap up this edition of the podcast talking about the upside and downside of this unit. Upside, I don't want to continue to say the same thing over and over again. It's all potential. It's a lot of guys who could be really, really good. But the most important part of this upside is it'll help the development of Sam Leavitt. Sam Leavitt is the future of this offense for at least the next 2 years. He is going to be your starting quarterback. He is going to be the face of the program. And he is very green. He is very raw. He had 4 games played last year at Michigan State before he transferred. He is tons of potential. He's a former 4-star kid, but he's going to need help. The good news is he has a great run game. A great run game. And for what it's worth, a good passing game is going to free up the running game too. But he also needs to be able to show that he can throw the football. And he's got the talent to throw the football. He's got the physical gifts to throw the football. It's a matter of being able to take the coaching and turning the mechanics into delivery. He also is going to need help from his receivers because he's going to make some bad throws and he's going to need someone to bail him out. Or he's going to make some really good throws and receivers can't drop it or run the wrong route. It's a lot of give and take between the quarterbacks and receivers. But the receivers have a big job to do because Leavitt is the face. He is the quarterback. He is the guy. They will be taking on a much more serious role because of that. So now what you need is these guys to be able to rally together, play to each other's strengths, and help Sam Leavitt really take a step forward. I'm not saying Sam Leavitt needs to win the Heisman Trophy, but he definitely needs to show that improvement. And he will get that opportunity to show improvement if he's got the receivers that can step up and do as much for him. You've got some really good veterans on this team. You got some really exciting young kids too. I think it's a really good blend. If everyone does their job, then Leavitt is going to have great development in year 1. And again, your run game is going to look really good too. The downside is this ends up just being a jumbled mess. Without Elijhah Badger, you do not have a true number 1 receiver as of May 12th, 2024. Sometimes you can get away with it when you have plenty of guys that can do all sorts of different things, which is what ASU has. They've got big guys, they got fast guys, they got twitchy route runners. They got big bodies, they got small bodies, whatever. They got a little bit of everything. But that doesn't mean that it makes up for a number one receiver. It can, but it can also really show, like, hey, they know exactly how to guard this dude. And he's been wiped out of the game plan. We're down from 3 targets to 2 targets, from 4 targets to 3 targets, whatever it is. It could lead to teams scheming a little bit easier on you. You hope that the amount of talent that ASU has will be able to prevent that. But in a worst-case scenario, this is a mess that is difficult for ASU to navigate and very easy for opposing defenses to shut down. It will slow down the passing attack. It'll slow down the run game. And worst of all, it'll hurt the development of Sam Leavitt. As much as it will help him, it will hurt him. This is a young, exciting, green quarterback. But if you don't get him the support he needs, it's not going to be a fun year. And they're behind the 8 ball. Not only did you lose Elijhah Badger, but you lost him during spring ball. So you had to adjust on the fly. You also lost your wide receiver coach. You had to adjust on the fly by bringing in Hines Ward. You've got the rest of the offseason. You got training camp to get it figured out. But you are absolutely behind the 8 ball right now. I don't know what a fair expectation should be. Because in one sense, as I've said this whole podcast, is there's a lot of talent. There is reason to think that you can have something really special here. But at the same time, it's a lot of unproven talent. Omeire has not been a full-time receiver yet. Jake Smith is almost 2 years removed from football. Jordyn Tyson is a year removed from football. Stovall was a role player for you. Guillory was dealing with injury. Korbin Hendrix and Kaleb Black and who else is on the team? Armin Collins, that's who I was thinking. Armin, well, he's a redshirt junior. Who's the other redshirt freshman I'm thinking of? Derek Asubio. Those are redshirt freshmen. Armin Collins, though, hasn't gotten on the field much. Zachariah Sample, the lone freshman. The reason I didn't bring him up is because I think that he's probably in for redshirt. It's 5'11", 165. He's got a lot of weight that he probably needs to put on, and it's a deep room. It's a deep, exciting, high upside, low downside kind of room. I like the room a lot, and I'll plant my flag on there. I like this room. I think that they've got a really, really talented group of guys that can do a myriad of different things for you. But I can also acknowledge that this is a room that could implode. Without the slam dunk number one receiver on the team, it's just a difficult transition, especially when that guy had been the number one for 2 years. You're going with a lot of unknowns and a redshirt freshman quarterback. This could go very well or it could go very bad. I stand with it could go very well. I like the room. I like the talent. I think you got a potential star with Jordyn Tyson, and I think you've got plenty of other guys who can do plenty of things and make life easy for this offense. But I want to know who you guys are excited for in the wide receiver room. Who's your receiver one? Am I crazy for thinking Jordyn Tyson is more talented than Elijhah Badger? Let me know in the comments. You can hit me up on Twitter at RichieBrats36 and the podcast at LO_Sun Devils. But wherever you're getting your podcast, hit like, subscribe, turn on notifications so you get an update whenever we post new content. A shout out to my everydayers who are here every day, and thanks for making us your first listen of the day. We will be back again tomorrow now that I am getting over my sickness. I'm still a little bit congested if you couldn't tell, but now that we are getting over it, we will be back to regularly scheduled content. Tomorrow we're going to be taking a look at the tight end position. I'll see you then. Till then, you keep it locked right here on Locked On Sun Devils.